The Ming dynasty endured for about 300 years, from the 14th through 17th centuries, taking place between the Yuan dynasty established by the Mongols of the northwest and the Qing dynasty established by the Manchu of the north. The Ming dynasty was a unique time of more central rule, during which Chinese exports, culture, and politics enjoyed an unusually significant impact on the rest of the contiguous world. As if in accordance with the campy Zack Snyder film, the Ming dynasty began with the wild aspirations of a peasant. This peasant's name was Zhu Yuanzhang, and this is his story. Before Xiao Jun became master of the Chinese Brotherhood, Zhu Yuanzhang led the Red Turbans, a group of rebels who sought to seize Nanqing, the capital of the Yuan dynasty. After defeating the Mongols, Zhu Yuanzhang officially declared himself emperor in 1368 and took on the name of Hongwu. Not only would Hongwu witness a flourishing Chinese economy, but he'd also note a resurgence in local artistic traditions. This Hongwu emperor was a big believer in tough love, dragging his empire kicking and screaming through several major changes. He created a central government with jurisdiction over all local principalities, reformed ineffective agriculture, and, of course, executed many dissenters. Many resented Hongwu for his stubborn and unyielding nature, viewing him as a madman during his reign, but he set a strong foundation for successors to develop China into a major world power. Decades later, Hongwu had to pick an heir among his 26 sons. A football team has 11 players. Zhu Biao was Hongwu's first choice, as this son was the oldest. But after Zhu Biao's untimely death, the second choice was Zhu Biao's first son, Zhu Yunwen. This practice of having the first grandson serve as an heir in the event of the first son's death persisted for the remainder of the dynasty. Now, the first time this happened, Hongwu's second son wasn't too happy about dad discarding him in favor of the grandson, so he started a civil war that endured for 3 years and came out on top as emperor of a flourishing China in the early 1400s. Though the Ming dynasty connected China more directly to the rest of the world, many cultural developments arose locally. Revisiting traditional forms of art and literature, China experienced its own renaissance that was entirely separate from that of European contemporaries. A greater focus on new or traditional techniques for painting and sculpting allowed Chinese art to spread across the world. For instance, Chinese potters often decorated porcelain with blue glaze, which is why European and American sets of china feature blue embroidery. China popularized the technique, and the rest of the world followed suit. Alongside this new visual art was a literary revitalization of poetry, novels, plays, and musical theater. As in Renaissance Italy, the state commissioned the land's most revered artists to tackle architectural projects, thereby signifying the majesty and virtue of Chinese rule to citizens or visitors. Obligated to spread specific messages from the government, artists couldn't take many creative liberties. This government-mandated art reminds me of a video about Soviet bus stops. The short version of the story is that the USSR commissioned artists to decorate bus stops with propaganda. Anyway, it's in the description. As productive as artists and governors were during this time, it was also a turbulent one. First of all, the Yuan dynasty hadn't ended quietly. Mongols continued to campaign against China for decades, seeking a path past the Great Wall. This harassment was almost constant during the Ming dynasty's earliest years. Meanwhile, prosperous cities along the coast were popular targets for Japanese and Chinese pirates lurking in the eastern seas. Japan frustrated Chinese forces further with attempts to colonize Korea. Why Korea? Because Busan is 40 miles away from Tsushima. China had to conduct several costly campaigns to keep Japan out of Korea. Over time, the central government was weakened by inattentive emperors, a large number of conflicting factions, interference among political figures, and a growing population. This culminated in a rebellion led by Li Zicheng in 1644. To end resistance as swiftly as possible, Ming leadership phoned in aid from the Manchu, a tribal people from the north. Together, the Ming and the Manchu claimed victory, the latter of whom remained in central China to establish the Qing dynasty. Between Hongwu's iron fist and government-mandated art, Xiao Jun's quest for freedom makes sense to this Assassin's Creed fan. But as of several months prior to the time of recording, she's not the only protagonist on the Eastern Front. Occurring from 1570 to 1600, the Azuchi Momoyama period is named after two castles. Azuchi was Oda Nobunaga's castle on Lake Biwa, while Momoyama belonged to Nobunaga's successor, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who established a central seat of government in Kyoto for all provinces across Japan. The names of these castles suited the period because it was a time of opulence, especially in comparison to earlier periods of the Sengoku era. The Japanese abandoned the maintenance of archaic temples in favor of luxuriously beautiful mansions and castles. The region's best painters decorated these architectural wonders with ornate murals upon sliding doors and walls alike. Viewers may recognize Oda Nobunaga from some of the literature surrounding Yasuke, whose name literally means the Black One. Indeed, Nobunaga coined the iconic name and took Yasuke under his wing, christening the first and only African samurai. If you've seen the limited series on Netflix, recall the first episode. There was a siege during which Nobunaga committed seppuku. Apart from the mechs and literal magic, Akechi Mitsuhide's surprise attack did happen, but everything beyond the first episode is fiction. No enduring evidence of Yasuke exists beyond this point. The enemies captured Yasuke in the wake of the battle, but because he looked so foreign, they thought he didn't have enough skin in the game to warrant any meaningful punishment, so they released him. Historians don't know much about Yasuke beyond this cursory story. Though Nobunaga's life ended violently, he'd managed to alleviate civil unrest across the country and pave the path for Hideyoshi to usher in a time of wealth, growth, and unity. A warlord himself, Nobunaga secured his rule under a single banner by beating the living daylights out of fellow warlords, dozens of whom had balkanized the country into a free-to-play battle royale game. Nobunaga became an effective conqueror mainly by being a shrewd tactician. Not only was he among the first Japanese leaders to rely on European firearms, but he directed his musketeers to reload in such a way as to ensure a continuous rate of fire. Certainly anyone familiar with muskets would see the value in rotational fire. Perhaps such strategy was more a matter of discipline than creativity. Another important reason why Nobunaga's men fared better than rivals was armor. Each of Nobunaga's men wore some sort of armor regardless of rank, which was an unusual investment at the time he rose to power. More peripherally, Oda Nobunaga secured his control further by dealing shrewdly with rival lords from an economic perspective. For example, he abolished tolls on roads across Japan to limit independent lords' source of income. He also minted a new form of currency, determining its actual value as well as its value relative to pre-existing coins. Until the battle that claimed his life, Nobunaga steamrolled his way through rival lords and Buddhist temples to set a strong foundation for Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi claimed his revenge almost immediately, defeating Mitsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki. In the wake of this battle, Hideyoshi officially declared his leadership. Beyond shifting the seat of power from Azuchi to Momoyama, Hideyoshi continued the brutal campaigns of his predecessor in combination with shrewd diplomacy. He was also known for reforming and modernizing the government with comprehensive taxation and the establishment of a class system. Finally, after annexing pretty much everything there was to annex across Japan, Hideyoshi set his sights on Korea. Indeed, he enjoyed control over Pyongyang and Seoul at one point, but as one might imagine, this occupation didn't last. His health was in decline when he began his Korean campaign, and even if events had unfolded in his favor, he wouldn't have lived to the end of the conflict. Ending with Hideyoshi, the Azuchi Momoyama period ushered in the centuries-long Edo period whose early years historians consider to be the golden age of the samurai. In the next video, we're going to catch a flight to the Caribbean, discussing the golden age of piracy as portrayed by Edward Kenway's story in Assassin's Creed 4, and the colonization of Haiti, as portrayed by Adewale's story in Freedom Cry, the fourth game's standalone DLC.